families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Families Divided TV. In this episode, Dr. William Bernet has continued his research on misinformation, and he's got a new article being peer-reviewed by a good journal. He's heard from the editor that it is likely to be published pending some revisions. The title of this presentation would be Misinformation Echo Chamber: False Statements About Parental Alienation Theory. This article highlights an important issue related to misinformation in the context of parental alienation theory. It identifies the repeated publication of the same misinformation by writers who had a relationship with one specific mental health journal. Gephi software was used to conduct citation analysis, which identifies and portrays the links between citing and cited materials. The implication of this research is that the repeated dissemination of this false information can lead to significant misrepresentations of the PA theory. Explanations for this trial of misinformation are explored, including the explicit anti-bias of the journal editors and the author's persistent reliance on friends and colleagues as sources of information, i.e., the misinformation echo chamber. This article emphasizes the need for academic journals and the scholarly community to be vigilant in preventing the spread of misinformation and ensuring that the information presented is based on sound research and evidence. This is really a great episode, and it can really be helping people who are dealing with court. So I do hope you get a lot out of it. Take notes if you like. And we want to thank Dr. Bernet for doing this episode, as well as all the work he's done in the field of parental alienation. We're going to be right back with Dr. William Bernet right after these important messages. Hello, everyone. I'm Elaine Cobb. I'm founder and president of Family Access Fighting for Children's Rights. I'm also founder, host, and executive producer of Families Divided TV. I want to invite you to our upcoming fall conference, which is virtual and international. It will be the very last one that we ever have, and it's going to be an incredible 2-day event, and I hope you'll join us. Normally we do the topics, where it's just one topic specifically. But this time, I said, you know what, we need to branch it out a little bit. And so I asked you to send in what you thought were very important topics to you. And so that's what we're going to be using and speaking on. We have two keynote speakers. Our first one is Dr. Edward Crook, and he, as a favor to us, we had asked him if he could do a study on grandparents who have never met their grandchildren. And there's never been a study on this. It's always in court or in the legislature if you've had some kind of a relationship with your grandchild. Well, hello, there's many of us out there who have never seen their grandchild, including myself and my husband Chester, who we've never seen our granddaughter Dare, who's now 13. So this is an incredible, extensive study that he's taken over a year to do, and we've recorded it now. And this presentation, I will tell you, is off the chart. It is incredible. It's awesome. I mean, I could just keep going on and on. He's going to give us much information, and he's also going to get this peer reviewed, get it ready to be got out there with lots of different places, and it's going to help. We'll be able to use this in court. We'll be able to use this in the legislature, and it is huge, very, very important. So I hope even those grandparents who have met their grandchildren will also he's also going to talk to you as well. So you're not going to be left out. So if you are a grandparent, you do not, I repeat, do not want to miss this conference, because this is really, really great. So please, be there. His presentation is entitled "The Eraser of Grandparents from Children's Lives." We're going to also have Bill Eddy as our other co-host and our keynote speaker. And he's going to be speaking to us on court trends, the trouble with letting the children decide. Some states and court systems are considering letting children as young as 14 years old have the right to make decisions about whether to have a relationship with one of their parents. He's going to be speaking to us about this. And, Bill Eddy's with High Conflict Institute. He's written numerous books. He's got a new one out now, as you know. And you're not going to want to miss this one. This is a really good one. It's important that we know about all that. We're also going to have Dr. Joshua Coleman, who works with alienated and estranged parents of adult children. And he's very well known out there all over the world. And he's going to be speaking to us about reaching out to your alienated or estranged child, the do's and don'ts that you need to be doing. I get emails all the time from you guys wanting to know, what should I do? Even on our Families Divided comments, I get all that. He's going to let us know right here. So you want to be able to be there for that too. Dr. Sue Kornbluth will be presenting as well in this conference, and she's going to be speaking to us on managing personality disordered co-parents who alienate their children. Now, we haven't done a whole lot on co-parenting. We may have 3, I think, episodes on Families Divided. So this will be huge for those of you that have to co-parent and you're dealing with people who have major personality disorders. So Dr. Kornbluth is going to share much with this on that. And Dr. Mary Alvarez is going to be speaking to us on a very interesting topic. It's going to be called Parental Alienation, the toxic stress in your child's brain. And nothing is more important than our child and what they're going through this. They are what matters through all of this in the world of alienation. As we know, alienation is child abuse. And she's going to share some very interesting things. She's done a great study on this, so you're not going to want to miss that. Chris Turner is going to be speaking to us on trusting and understanding agents of court guardian ad litem, amicus therapists, psychologists, parenting facilitators, and court-appointed professionals. She's going to tell you, give us some information, because it can get really overwhelming to us as we have to deal with these people. She's going to give us some great advice on that as well. And then Dr. Kelly Baker is going to be speaking to us on the therapeutic interventions for parent-child contact problems with teens. We've never, and I'm sad to say that, we've never done anything with teens. So this one's going to be huge. And Dr. Baker's really doing an intense study on it, and it is going to be good, but it's really going to help you as an alienated or targeted parent and how to deal with this with your teenager. We also have Melanie Gill with us, and she's going to be speaking on Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire. We deal with a lot of this in court with lots of things that are said that are not true. And, Melanie's really been through the mill over there, so to speak, in the UK. And she's going to be helping us in sorting out this important info. Also, Dr. Kathleen Ray from Canada will be speaking to us on understanding the realities of a reunification program, dispelling common misconceptions. There's a lot of lies and fake news out there on this, and she's going to share and help us to understand what is factual and what is false. And so you don't want to miss this one either. Then Attorney Chris Turner will be with us. He's going to be sharing secrets to litigating parental alienation allegations. Chris is one of the best attorneys, and I've dealt with many over the 13 years, and he truly is like at the top for me. He really cares about you guys, and first and foremost, he cares about you. And he's, a lot of attorneys, I've got to say, sadly, are out for the bucks, but Chris isn't one of them. And he's going to be sharing a lot with us on this, so please don't miss out on it. Also, Randy Fine is going to be speaking to us about confronting the mirror. Do narcissists face their own reflections? That is a very interesting question, and Randy will be sharing with us on that. Also, we have with us Dean Tong. He has a really great presentation on false allegations of abuse, navigating the three-ring circus. And he's really, really knowledgeable on all of this and dealing with CPS and all of them. So he'll share much info for you and how to deal with all of that. And then, to me, this is really the most important part of the conference. I think Caden's Law has pretty much destroyed or tried to destroy our families. Well, we're going to have with us Dr. Lynn Steinberg, Yakov Achamam, and Robert Gaza with us. And those three are going to be doing a panel discussion. And they all three have all different perspectives on all about Caden's Law and what to do and how we can go around it and how we can defeat it and help get our families back together in ways that we can. Many of you in the States really need to be paying attention to this. I'm going to tell you that as a parent and as a grandparent, if we don't stand up and fight for our children and our grandchildren, we can just about wrap it up and forget about it. So you can't sit back and say, oh, I wish they'd come help us over here and all that. Get up and get it done. Help everybody. You don't have to be, a college degree or any of that. You've just got to have the heart and the zeal that you want to get up and fight for your own kid and your own grandkid. So be a part, make it happen, and come and learn from this. You can submit your questions, and we're going to have questions for all different presentations and especially for this. So we want you to do that. So don't miss out on that, please. That's going to be really important. I also want to emphasize that this will only be, again, through only the Zoom, Family Access Zoom. That will be the only way you can be a part of this 2-day event. But I also want you to know, and this is very important, if you cannot make the 2-day event, that's fine. We'd love for you to be there in person, but we understand everybody's lives are busy. So take the time and register, and you have between that following Monday, the 7th of October, till the end of December to view it. We'll have that for you available. And here's the secret. If you do register and you do come to the event, you can watch it as many times as you want. So that's going to be a special that I'm giving my gift to you that way, because this will be our absolute last conference that we ever have. So you will have plenty of time to view it as many times as you want. And I hope you will take advantage of it and do just that, because we feel like these topics are so very important. And we want you to be a part of it. We're also on Sunday night, we're going to be having, after the conference, we're going to have from 7 to 9, a time where you can meet together and share your testimonies. If you want to share your stories and stuff, that's fine. And we're also going to be making a support group out of that as well. So come for that. And then on Saturday night from 9 p.m. until 7 a.m. Sunday morning, we're going to be having what we call the one-on-one chat room, which I lovingly call the Chatty Cathy group. These people have a great time at these. We've done these every international virtual conference. They get together, and I do not understand how in the world they can chat half the night online and get back in the morning for the conference, but they're doing it. But it's a great time to really open your heart, share your experiences, give each other ideas on what's important to you. We do everything we can to make this the best it can be for you and being supportive to you. I really hope that you will come and you will join us for this very important, incredible event. And also, I will be announcing to you something very special at the end of our conference. So please come, please register. You've still got time, and look forward to seeing you there. Take care. God bless.
Divorce and co-parenting are a major life interruption for families, especially the kids, but also for parents and grandparents. And it's even worse in blame-filled, high-conflict cases. When parents engage in alienation by turning the kids against the other parent or grandparents, kids suffer. They're denied the opportunity to build the 4 big skills necessary for future resilience. New Ways for Families online class can help. Parents learn to use our popular BIF and EAR skills to calm the conflict and stop the hostile emails and texts. And we even have a class for kids and parents to learn together. Research shows a 75% improvement in joint parental decision-making after this course is taken, plus overall improvements for kids' well-being. Don't wait to make this affordable investment in your children's future and improve your well-being too. Start learning new ways for your family today at conflictplaybook.com.
Hello. Our topic today is misinformation echo chamber, false statements about parental alienation theory. So you might not know what that means. You might not know what misinformation echo chamber means, but I'm going to explain it to you and you'll understand that in a few minutes. So first, let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Bill Bernet. I'm a forensic psychiatrist and a child psychiatrist in Nashville, Tennessee. And I've done a lot of work with regard to parental alienation and parental alienation theory. So the 3 things I'm going to address today, this is my little overview, is I'm going to explain that there have been over time many recurrent misstatements regarding parental alienation theory. I'm going to summarize some recent research that my colleagues and I have done. And I'm going to give you a few suggestions on what to do about it, some strategies for addressing misinformation. So first, I want to give you a definition, and we can read this together. The definition of parental alienation is the mental condition of a child, usually one whose parents are engaged in a high conflict separation or divorce, who ally strongly with one parent, we call the favored parent, and rejects a relationship with the other parent, the alienated parent, without a good reason. So here's a little diagram, a family diagram. Some people like these diagrams. And in this diagram, there's an alienating parent and an alienated parent. And they both are blaming each other for the child's refusal to see one of the parents. That little yellow arrow that blinks a couple of times is the what we call parental alienation. In other words, that's the mental state of the child refusing a parent, and also the actual the refusal, the relationship between that parent and the rejected parent. And then the big arrow that blinks a couple of times is what we call alienating behaviors. So it's good to keep that distinction in mind. What the child's mental state is called parental alienation, and the thing that causes the child to be alienated are alienating behaviors. So I want to tell you a few examples of the kinds of misinformation that has occurred and what we refer to as recurrent misstatements of parental alienation theory. And here's one example. This was in a journal that I subscribe to, the Journal of the American Academy of Psychiatry and the Law. And I'm using this as an example because in this case, a problematic article appeared, and then later there was a response published by my colleague, Amy Baker, and myself. So in the next slide, you can see the article that was the problem. it was called The Parental Alienation Debate Belongs in the Courtroom, not in DSM-5. And that was by actually a child psychiatrist that I know, Dr. Timothy Hochin. But I disagreed with a number of things that were stated in that article. And so I contacted the editor, and the editor agreed for us to write a response. And so that was written by me and Amy Baker. And the name, you can see the two articles together. That one's called Parental Alienation, DSM-5 and ICD-11, Response to Critics. So that's one way to correct misinformation, is to publish another article in the same journal. A second way I want to give you as an example is a book published by the American Psychological Association a few years ago. The name of the book was Family Evaluation in Custody Litigation. And that had a number of errors, actually, in the very first chapter of the book. And in this case, I complained to the editor, and in fact, I went up the chain of command to the general counsel and the head administrator of the American Psychological Association. And the general counsel, that means the attorney, the lawyer for the APA, agreed with me, and she arranged for a correction to be made in this book. So that's another way to correct a misstatement. There's one more example of another journal called Journal of Youth Services Review, and that also involved an article in the journal and a mistake in that article. And in that case, I simply contacted the author and the editor, and they quickly agreed with me, and they corrected the article. So anybody who looks up that article now will see the corrected article. So sometimes it works to correct mistakes that have been published regarding parental alienation. Sometimes it doesn't. And here's an example of a time that it didn't really work. This is another journal called the Journal of the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. And the name of the article was Under the Microscope by an attorney in Boston whose name was Kimberly Joyce. So we felt that that article had many, many errors. In fact, it wasn't just one or two sentences. It was pervasive through the entire article. And we thought the article either needed to be totally corrected or removed from publication. So in that case, I contacted everybody. I contacted the author, the two editors of the journal, and I contacted the president of the organization. And I didn't get anywhere with that. They simply said they were happy with the article and they didn't want to correct anything. So sometimes we don't get anywhere when we try to make these corrections. Here's one more example of misinformation that's pretty important. About a year ago, an agency of the United Nations posted on their website a really, really problematic article. So this is done by the Human Rights Council, which is one of the components of the United Nations. And they published an article that was written by what's called a special rapporteur, or a special reporter, who was writing a report regarding violence against women and girls. The problem is the special rapporteur immediately went off on a tangent, and almost the entire document is a criticism of parental alienation. So we tried hard to get that corrected. We wrote up our own report, which was an analysis of the report by the special rapporteur, and we sent it to all the members of the Human Rights Council of the United Nations. We had partial success in that the Human Rights Council never formally adopted or endorsed that report, but our problem is it's still posted with the United Nations. So sometimes we can make these corrections, sometimes it doesn't work. We're not able to really correct the basic misinformation. So those are just some examples. There are many, many examples of misinformation regarding parental alienation. So those are just a few. What I want to tell you about, though, is some research that my colleagues have done and regarding misinformation. And I want to show you the cover of a journal that was published last year. And our article is it's kind of neat. Our article is on the cover of the journal. The name of the journal is Behavioral Sciences and the Law. And what you see here in the slide is the actual cover. And I know that the cover is a little bit confusing. You see several blue circles and then a lot of lines going back and forth. So I know that's a little bit confusing, and that's on purpose, because I had the idea that if we put that on the cover, people would wonder, well, what's that all about? And they would open the journal and read that article. So here's the name of the article. In the next slide, it says, Scholarly Rumors, Citation Analysis of Vast Misinformation Regarding Parental Alienation Theory. And it's by me and by my colleague at Vanderbilt, Dr. Shenming Zhu. And it has to do with a particular type of misinformation. In fact, what's interesting, it has to do with the same misinformation, the same phrases, the same false statement being repeated over and over and over again in many different journals. In other words, somebody will make this statement that's incorrect, and then somebody else will quote it, and then somebody else will quote that. And so the false or the misinformation goes through many years, through many different journals and many different articles. So that's a problem. Here, I'm going to read you what the false information is. We need to all understand that this statement I'm about to read you is not correct. Parental alienation theory assumes that the favored parent has caused parental alienation in the child simply because the child refuses to have a relationship with the rejected parent without identifying or proving alienating behaviors by the favored parent. In other words, these critics of parental alienation theory are saying that what we believe in is that every time a child rejects a parent, it's caused by parental alienation. But that's not correct. And what's really true is there are many different reasons a child might reject a parent, or it's also called parent-child contact problem. There are many reasons why that might happen. And parental alienation is only one of those reasons. So it's really, that's a serious criticism, because it's misstating a fundamental principle of parental alienation theory, that none of us, no PA writer has ever said that all children who refuse a parent have been indoctrinated by the other parent. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. Yet an evaluation has to be done to figure out what's actually happening. So we published that one article that I showed you right now, but I'm going to tell you about a new article, which is on the same topic. So you can see the name of the article. It's called Misinformation Echo Chamber, Parental Alienation Theory, and the Journal of Family Trauma, Child Custody, and Child Development. And that article has not yet been published. I hope it will be published soon. It's already been sent into a journal, and it's been reviewed by, it's gone through peer review, and it's being considered by the editors as to whether they're going to publish it. So this research is similar to the article I just showed you. And I want to show you how this works, how what's called citation analysis works. So in this slide, it says at the top, 110 examples of the same misinformation. And there are a number of blue dots. Each dot represents an article published in a journal, or a presentation, or some kind of legal document. And you don't need to count them, but I'll tell you there are 110 dots, blue dots, in this diagram. But let me show you what's important is we need to show how are these dots connected to each other. In other words, how are these articles related to each other? And in the next slide, it has the same dots, but it has a lot of blue lines, and these blue lines connect the dots. And What I'm trying to show you is that they're chronological. On the far left-hand side of the slide is how it all begins. And there's an article that had misinformation, and that gets quoted by somebody. And then that article gets quoted by somebody else, all the way to the right-hand side of the diagram, which is only a year ago. So as you can see, this problem starts out with only a few articles with the misinformation. But after a few years, there are many, many articles with this misinformation. So that's a real problem. There's basically an epidemic of misinformation. I want to give you a close-up that shows a little bit better what I'm calling citation analysis. So in this one, you can see the far left-hand side. It's a little close-up of the left-hand end of that diagram. And there's one article at the far on the left border, and there's only maybe 4 or 5 article lines coming out of that. So that means only 4 or 5 people quoted that very first article. But now, if you go to the right-hand side, there's a close-up of the right-hand side. And as you can see, now there are many, many articles that are quoting that same misinformation. It's a real problem. Now, what I want to tell you about is that this misinformation is not spread uniformly among journals, mental health journals, and legal law journals. There are actually only a handful of journals that create the whole problem. And in fact, I was giving you 110 examples of the same misinformation. We found that 60 of them are connected to the same journal. So in the next slide, which has yellow dots and yellow lines, you can see there are actually 60 dots here, and they're all connected to the same journal, which is called the Journal of Child Custody. Actually, and I'll tell you, it actually has a new name now, but that's what the name used to be. And this is a real problem. In other words, we're able to show that the same journal is involved with 60 different examples of misinformation regarding parental alienation. And here's how here's the breakdown of articles connected to that journal. 17 of them were actually published in that journal, but there's another 57 of them that were written by editors who are associated with that journal, people who are on the editorial board of the Journal of Child Custody. And so altogether, there were 60 articles either in the journal or written by editors. What's interesting is that in many cases, several, 2 or 3 editors of the same journal might write an article together. So obviously these individuals all know each other and they work together. And that's part of the evidence for why we call this an echo chamber. A misinformation echo chamber is when a group of people who work together repeat the same misinformation over and over again by quoting each other. That's why it's called an echo chamber. They're quoting each other. In this case, this same journal, the misinformation is propagated through looks like 25 or 30 years, which is just an amazing amount of misinformation for one journal to produce. So let me tell you something about the publisher of this journal. They publish what's called a disclaimer. A disclaimer is a statement published in every issue of a journal that usually says the publisher is not responsible for mistakes that are made in their article. So in this case, the publisher, the name of it is Taylor and Francis. And you can see in this disclaimer, it says Taylor and Francis make no representations or warranties whatsoever as to the accuracy, completeness, or suitability for any purpose of the content. The content is the opinions of the authors, not the opinions of the journal. And just in the next slide, I have in red the most relevant sentence, which says the accuracy of the content should not be relied upon. And I certainly agree with that. And they say the content should be independently verified with primary sources of information. So that's true. There are so many mistakes in the articles in this journal that you can't rely on these articles. And you have to go back and look at primary sources. What that means is that secondary sources are when one author simply quotes another author who might be a colleague or a friend of his, but he doesn't go back and quote the original source. So in this case, these authors are not quoting the original writings of experts regarding parental alienation. They're not going back to those articles or books or book chapters. They're quoting other critics of parental alienation. And in doing that, they're propagating false and misleading information. So I want to move on a little bit and talk about what to do about it. So this is called strategies for addressing misinformation. So if you're just you can either be an everyday citizen, or you can be a scholar, or you can be a psychologist who's interested in this topic. So here's some things you can do about misinformation. Here's a list of suggestions here. So for one thing, you can make a formal complaint to the publisher. So I already gave you an example of that. I told you that I complained to the publisher of the book published by the American Psychological Association, and they corrected, at least partly, they corrected the misinformation in that particular book. So another thing you can do if you spot misinformation, you can publish a rebuttal in the same journal. You can contact the editor and see if they'll agree to publish a new article by you in which you explain the mistakes in the previous article. So that doesn't make the previous article go away, and it doesn't correct the previous article, but it does mean that there's a response or a rebuttal published in the same journal. And if you go online and if you look up these articles, they usually mention each other. In other words, if you happen to go online and look at that initial article that I objected to, on the online version of it, it will say that a response to this article was published a few months later, and they'll hook you up to the response. Another thing you can do if you're upset by the amount of misinformation, you can write a book about it, and which we've done, and I'm going to get to that more specifically in a minute. An easier thing to do is write a letter to the editor or an op-ed article in a newspaper. So many journals publish letters to the editor. They don't all, some don't, but many do. That if you spot an error, a serious error, frequently, and if you write, you have to follow whatever the directions are that the editors provide. But frequently, if you write a letter to the editor, they will publish your letter that the readers can see. Actually, newsletters and newspapers and magazines also do that. They're a little bit more likely to. A few years ago, there was a psychiatric newspaper that published a really negative statement about parental alienation, and a number of us wrote in. And in the next issue, there might have been 7 or 8 different letters to the editor that were published about the mistake that they wrote. And sure enough, they published these complaints by me and the other people. And in fact, the original author wrote an apology, and he apologized for what he had said about parental alienation. So that's fairly easy to do, and frequently it works, and you can see a result sometimes just in a couple of months. Nowadays, of course, people look at videos much more than they read newspapers or read journals. So if you do spot something that's a serious error, if you want to, you can get together, perhaps make some kind of video, post it on YouTube, or somehow put it on different Facebook pages to get the information out. And of course, you'd have to make it clear what the original mistake was and how to correct it. If you do that, you might need to team up with some other people and kind of create a campaign for how to correct the mistake that was stated. Sometimes it works better if you team up with some other people. My last suggestion here is if you are reading any kind of journal article or newspaper article, have a critical eye. Don't believe everything you see. If you're somewhat familiar with the topic of parental alienation, you can, and if you read something that doesn't quite make sense, one thing you can do is look up see what are the references, where are they getting that information? I'll give you a simple example of misinformation that was published a lot by critics of parental alienation. They say that parental alienation is not recognized by any professional society organization in this country, in the United States. That is really incorrect. And it's easy to prove that that's not correct. Actually, I'll show you in a second how to prove it. But that's a simple example of a misstatement, a misinformation that has been stated over and over again that's easy to correct. So let me mention a couple of books. I said one of the things you can do is write a book, which is of course, is a big project. But this is a book that my colleague, Demosthenes Larandos, and I published a few years ago called Parental Alienation, Science and Law. And it addresses misinformation over and over again. In other words, each time we have a chapter, the chapter addresses a topic, either how to diagnose alienation, what to do about it, and so on. And at the end of each chapter, there's misinformation regarding that particular topic and a response. And I just gave you that example. There's one chapter in this book called, I think it's called Recognition of Parental Alienation by Professional Organizations. And we actually have in this chapter 7 or 8 examples of organizations in the United States, psychiatry organizations, that have recognized the reality of parental alienation. And so in other words, that's an easy way to prove it, that if you come across this misstatement, you can simply look up the chapter in this book and it disproves that misinformation when it says nobody has recognized this. So anyway, that's one way that we've addressed misinformation in this particular book. And the next slide is a different book regarding parental alienation, which was written by our colleague, Ashish Joshi, who's an attorney, and he's a very experienced attorney. And the name of his book is Litigating Parental Alienation. And he did the same thing. What we did in our book, at the end of each chapter, there's a discussion of misinformation. What Mr. Joshi did is he has a separate chapter that the book discusses all sorts of different aspects of misinformation. And there's one chapter about how often it happens and what to do about it. So I hope you've gotten some information here about our topic, that I wanted to show you that this misinformation is widespread. And I wanted to give you an example of a particular little sentence or paragraph that has been stated over and over and over again as a misstatement, as a false statement. And that was that sentence that says, what parental alienation people say is that every child who's rejecting a parent was caused by an alienating parent or by indoctrination by the favored parent. We don't say that. That is a false statement. It makes us look kind of stupid, which I think is the intent of that false statement. And it's been stated over and over again. Our research has uncovered 110 examples of that same false statement over and over again. And in fact, as I pointed out, 60 of those examples had some connection to the same journal. So finally, let me just give you this information about our organization, the Parental Alienation Study Group. And this is our website, www.pasg.info. And y'all are welcome to join PASG. Our members are partly alienated parents and grandparents. They're partly children who are now adults who have been alienated earlier as children. They're partly mental health professionals and partly attorneys and judges. And in a more general sense, almost everybody is an advocate, is a family advocate of some kind. So if you're interested, go to the website and then hit the button that says membership, and that will explain what you need to do to become a member. There are a lot of different organizations having to do with alienation. Family Access, of course, is a really wonderful organization, and they have done these TV programs, and PASG is a somewhat different. You know, we have different activities, and these organizations overlap to a good degree. So thank you very much for your attention today. I hope this has been helpful to you. Goodbye.
Next week on Families Divided TV, retired Israeli judge Philip Marcus discusses the framing of court orders for assessment of a child, where alienation is alleged.